The union showdown in Wisconsin is spreading to other states, inspiring a national debate over what we pay in total to public sector workers. It's enormous. And polls are showing that the majority of the general public are siding with those like Wisconsin's Governor Scott Walker, who wants to curtail dramatically those benefits and costs. Here to discuss are my freedom fighters, Fox Business anchor and my colleague and friend Elizabeth McDonald, Cato Institute senior fellow Dan Mitchell, and radio host and Freedom Watch regular Nancy Skinner. Nancy, to you first. Why should members of the public sector union have the following liberties? Health care from the first day on the job till the day they die. The ability to choose their bosses by using the union's political muscle to determine who's going to negotiate with them. If you're a cop, 80% of your highest salary is your pension for the rest of your life, and you can get that as young as age 40. That is unheard of in the private sector. Hello, Nancy.
Well, you know what, Judge, this is really about going after those private sector unions by attacking the public sector unions. And, you know, if you're going to bring up cops, they risk their lives. So obviously there has to be a pension. And so here's the argument. Really, this argument is about whether we should even have unions. And, Judge, we got to look at history. You know, everybody said after the Depression, oh, let's get rid of all those laws we put in after the Depression because we don't need them. That was a long time ago. Guess what? The same thing happened. The reason union laws were put in place and these protections is because people were working 7 days a week, kids, 12-hour days.
Yeah, but that doesn't exist anymore, and the laws are there. No one's talking about getting rid of unions, Nancy. Dan, weigh in on this. The Constitution allows you the right to associate. It allows you the right to petition the government for a redress of your grievances. For gosh sakes, the Solidarity labor union in Poland was part of the reason they got rid of the communists. No one's saying there shouldn't be unions.
Right.
What we're saying is the unions shouldn't be. Hang on, Nancy. The unions shouldn't be negotiating with the government. Right, Dan?
Let's think of it this way. Imagine I was a salesman and you were a purchasing manager. Everyone would realize it would be bad, wrong, criminal, corrupt if I gave you a bribe to buy things I was selling from my company. So why on earth don't we understand that it's wrong for governments, for politicians to negotiate with unions when unions are usually in states among the biggest contributors to political campaigns? There's obviously a giant conflict of interest, and it explains why we have pay scales and benefit scales that are so out of whack. You have people in the productive sector who are working harder, earning less, breaking their backs, to subsidize this gilded class of high-paid bureaucrats.
Because as Steve Malanga just said, hang on, Nancy, because as Steve Malanga just said on this show, the government doesn't go away. It could make a very bad deal with the unions. It's still going to have to be paid, even if it's another administration, like Chris Christie is experiencing in New Jersey.
Yeah, that's right, Judge. And look, I've got teachers, I've got firemen. I come from a long line of firemen in my family. And so what we have been talking about, and my friends have been talking about, is this. And Dan has it right. Politicians at the state government get elected with the help of government union dues that come out of government union worker paychecks, that come out of our property taxes, our income taxes, and ours. That's right, that the government collects. So their interests are aligned. There's corruption and conflicts of interest. The unions are trying to make like this is an Erin Brockovich moment where, you know, you have union workers going up against a corrupt company. No, the unions are going up against the taxpayers.
All right, Nancy, put aside the moral right and wrong argument. Talk to me about the politics. How do you see this ending up? You have strong-willed people in John Kasich and Chris Christie and Scott Walker. You have them backed by the Tea Parties, and you have strong-willed labor unions. How do you think this ends?
Well, you know, to your point about the politics of it, Republicans support a lot of large corporations who have lobbyists who donate to campaign things. So, you know, this really is, at some point, you got to draw a line in the sand.
Hang on. Governor Chris Christie has said the process is so screwed because government unions are using lobbying money to attack him. And that lobbying money from the unions comes from taxpayers. This is why it's corrupt. 24 states we saw unions organizing for tax and spending increases that hit the regular taxpayer so they could get higher benefits.
How moral is it?
Lizzie, can I finish my sentence?
Yeah, go ahead,
I was trying to say,
Nancy, go ahead.
So the reason that is a central part of it is that if you say to someone you don't have to pay any dues and that you know we'll still represent you, then you're making them free freeloaders. They're going to get all the benefits. The unions won't be able to work on their behalf. You have to pay union dues, and those unions have to stay alive and use them, just the way corporations do with lobbyists.
Dan, how moral is it to force people that don't want to be in the union to pay union dues and then use that money to lobby for political benefits for the union?
Well, certainly one thing that should happen is there should be a division between the amount of union money, a very tiny percentage, that actually goes for representing the union in negotiations, and separate that from the huge amount of money that goes into the political operations. Nobody should be forced, as a condition of employment, to subsidize a left-wing activist campaign, which is what the unions are doing with the money.
Why is it, EMAC, that hardworking, basically conservative social value people like firemen and cops end up with such left-wing leaders of the unions?
I don't
and the
know.
same
It's
thing
a good
for teachers.
question.
What do your relatives tell you about this?
You know what? Listen, my great-grandfather ran the fire department for New York City, and this was at the time of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, which organized the International Ladies Garment Work. That was a serious thing. But I think that what firemen would say today is, look, we want to be exempt, and in fact, they are exempt in Wisconsin. They're not part of the issue, and neither are cops part of the issue in Wisconsin. The governor rightly says we are not; will not be part of what the issue is in Wisconsin. What he's saying is stop the collective bargaining for high benefits that the private sector doesn't get. Our 401k matches are going away.
All right, Nancy, why is it that public sector union employees should not have to contribute anything to health care or pensions like all of us who work in the private sector do? In the state of New Jersey, if you're a teacher, your health care is paid for from day one on the job until the day you die, and you never have to contribute a nickel to it. No private business could operate that way.
Right, and that is changing and has been changing through the years. Concessions, the UAW, for instance, they actually took care of all of their health care. They took it away from the autos, started their own health care fund, and they're doing that now. So concessions, and in Wisconsin, they're saying we will make those concessions. What we won't do is eliminate unions altogether, our ability to organize and break the unions. They're willing to do what you're saying,
Dan,
Judge. They're willing to do that.
I'll give you the last word. I'm smiling at what Nancy said because the same UAW that took away the health benefits asked Obamacare for an exemption from it.
The simple thing to do is compare, say, Virginia and North Carolina, where there is no collective bargaining for government unions. Look at the relative health of those states, look at the more rational policies of those states, and then compare them to the states that have been held up for ransom by the unions because they have this extraordinary power to squeeze the political system.
I think it's okay for teachers and cops. I think it's fine for teachers and cops or firemen to unionize. I'm all for it. I want rational unions, and they do have to deal with a lot of safety issues on the job to help it protect taxpayers.
Got it. EMAC, Dan Mitchell, Nancy Skinner, thank you, guys. Always a pleasure.